Good morning! Today, we're going to talk about something truly magnificent, something that holds a deep and powerful story about our planet. Imagine vast rivers of ice, so immense they carve mountains and shape entire landscapes over thousands of years. These are glaciers, the silent giants of our world, not just frozen wonders tucked away in the coldest corners of the Earth. They are active, vital parts of our global system. Towering peaks of the Himalayas, dramatic fjords of Alaska. Glaciers are a breathtaking sight, but more than beauty, they play a critical role in the health of our planet, a role we're only now beginning to fully appreciate as we witness their startling retreat in real time. Formed over centuries, even millennia, from layers of snow that accumulate and compact under their own immense weight, like a snowball that keeps growing year after year, until pressure transforms snowflakes into dense, solid ice. This creates a slow-moving river of ice that flows downhill, pulled by gravity. Glaciers cover about 10% of Earth's land surface and hold an astonishing amount of the world's freshwater. They are fundamental to our climate system, reflecting sunlight back into space and helping to regulate global temperatures. But these giants are in trouble. Their story is becoming one of loss. We long thought of them as permanent fixtures, timeless, unchangeable as the mountains. The reality today, these ice formations are shrinking at a pace scientists find deeply alarming. The melting is a direct and powerful signal, a message from our planet that things are changing, and fast. Understanding this transformation is essential for all of us. Let's journey together to understand these frozen titans. We'll explore why they're more than just ice, why they matter to communities thousands of miles away. The story of our glaciers is, in many ways, the story of ourselves and the world we're creating right now. When you turn on your faucet for a glass of water, you probably don't think about a glacier high up in a distant mountain range. But you should. Glaciers are essentially the world's frozen freshwater reservoirs, our planet's natural water towers. They store an incredible 69% of all the fresh water on Earth. That's more than all the lakes, rivers, and groundwater combined. For generations, these massive ice reserves have acted like a global savings account for water, collecting snow in the wet, cold seasons, and slowly releasing it as life-sustaining meltwater during the dry, warm months. This steady, reliable flow is something that billions of people have come to depend on for their very survival. In the winter, glaciers gain mass as snow piles up. Then in spring and summer, the ice at lower elevations begins to melt, feeding streams and rivers with a consistent supply of cold, clean water. Think about major river systems sustained by this process: Indus, Ganges, Brahmaputra. These rivers provide water for nearly 1 billion people. But what happens when these frozen fountains start to run dry? As glaciers shrink, this reliable water source becomes dangerously unpredictable. We are talking about a looming water crisis on a scale we have never seen before. Glaciers do more than just store water. They also serve as one of our planet's most sensitive and visible indicators of climate change. You can think of them as gigantic natural thermometers. For centuries, they have maintained a delicate balance. The amount of snow they gained in the winter was roughly equal to the amount of ice they lost to melting in the summer. But as global temperatures rise, that balance has been thrown completely off kilter. The scales have tipped dramatically toward melting, and the evidence is written clearly across the face of our planet's mountains and polar regions for all to see. Scientists who study glaciers, known as glaciologists, don't need complex equipment to see the most obvious sign of warming. They just need to look at photographs from a few decades ago and compare them to what they see today. The retreat is undeniable. Glaciers around the world are shrinking in length and thinning in depth. The snout, or the end of the glacier, is pulling back up the valley at a rate that is accelerating every year. The way scientists measure this change is fascinating. Researchers will drill stakes into the ice to measure how much the surface has lowered over a year, a process known as ablation. They also use satellite imagery and GPS technology to track the glacier's movement and volume changes with incredible precision. The data they collect from glaciers all over the world tells a consistent and troubling story. The rate of ice loss in the 21st century is unprecedented in the historical record. The Earth is running a fever, and the glaciers are melting away like ice cubes on a hot day, providing clear visual proof. These natural thermometers are sending us a very clear reading, and it's a warning that our planet's climate system is undergoing a rapid and dangerous transformation. This phenomenon of melting glaciers is not isolated to one or two remote corners of the globe. It is a worldwide crisis, a synchronized retreat happening on every continent that has ice. From the iconic peaks of Europe to the soaring heights of South America to the legendary rooftop of the world in Asia. In the European Alps, some of the world's most famous glaciers are disappearing before our very eyes. The Pastersee in Austria, the Mer de Glace in France. Both have lost large portions of their mass in just a few decades. Mountain communities are now holding funerals for glaciers that have vanished completely. Moving across the Atlantic to the Andes, the situation is just as dire. Tropical Andean glaciers sit closer to the melting point and are especially vulnerable. Peru's Pastoruri Glacier, once a tourist spot to walk on ice, has mostly become a rocky field. Bolivia has already lost several smaller glaciers completely. This rapid melt threatens water supplies for cities and farming regions that rely on glacial runoff. The Himalayas, the third pole, hold the largest concentration of ice outside the poles. The Hindu Kush Himalaya glaciers feed 10 of the world's most important river systems. Those rivers provide water for over 1.6 billion people. A landmark report found these glaciers are melting fast. Even optimistic scenarios lose over a third by 2100. If warming continues at current pace, losses could reach 2/3. The implications for water security, food, and regional stability are staggering. It's not a slow geological change over millennia. It's a rapid transformation within a single human lifetime. The retreat of glaciers is a stark visual proof that our planet is changing, and the consequences are already unfolding. While the melting of mountain glaciers has profound regional impacts, the story doesn't end there. All of that meltwater has to go somewhere, and much of it eventually finds its way into the world's oceans. This contribution to sea level rise is, honestly, one of the most serious global consequences of vanishing glaciers. You might think that only the massive ice sheets of Greenland and Antarctica matter, but the collective melting of the world's thousands of smaller mountain glaciers is a huge factor. It's kind of like thousands of small faucets all dripping into one big bathtub. The cumulative effect is enormous. As sea levels rise, the threat to coastal communities around the world becomes, well, increasingly severe. Miami, New York, Shanghai, Tuvalu, Maldives. Rising seas don't just mean that the water slowly creeps up the beach. It means that storm surges during hurricanes and typhoons push water further inland than ever before. It leads to more frequent sunny day flooding, where high tides alone are enough to inundate streets and neighborhoods. It also contaminates coastal freshwater sources with saltwater, threatening drinking water and threatening agriculture. The connection between a melting glacier high in a mountain and a flooded street in a coastal city might seem distant, but it is direct and undeniable. The rate of sea level rise is accelerating, and glacial melt is a primary driver of that acceleration. It is, without a doubt, a global problem that links the highest mountains to the lowest lying lands. Glaciers are the lifeblood of many of the world's river ecosystems. The cold, consistent meltwater they provide creates a unique and stable environment that supports a web of life: tiny microorganisms, large fish, and the animals that depend on them. This glacial runoff is not just water, it's a special kind of water. It's cold. Salmon, trout. It also carries a fine sediment called glacial flour, which provides nutrients that form the base of the aquatic food chain. For thousands of years, these river ecosystems have evolved and adapted to this steady cold flow. As glaciers shrink, that balance is being thrown into chaos. In the short term, increased melting can lead to a surge of water, but this higher volume can scour riverbeds, destroying fish spawning grounds, and washing away the insects and algae. The water temperature also begins to rise as the contribution from the cold glacial melt diminishes and is replaced by warmer rainwater and groundwater. This temperature shift can be lethal for cold water fish, effectively pushing them out of their native habitats or leading to population collapse. The long-term outlook is even more troubling. As a glacier recedes and eventually disappears, its contribution to the river flow will cease altogether. The once mighty year-round river can become a seasonal stream, raging with water during the rainy season, and then dwindling to a mere trickle, or even drying up completely during the hot, dry months. This feast or famine cycle is devastating for aquatic life. Fish, amphibians, insects. The loss of the river's base flow has a ripple effect, impacting wildlife that comes to the river to drink, and the plant life along its banks. This transformation of the river ecosystem has profound consequences for the animals and people who rely on it. Birds, mammals, downstream, human communities that depend on the river for fishing lose a vital part of their economy and diet. The loss of a glacier is not just the loss of ice, it is the slow death of the river it once sustained. The entire ecosystem, which was built around the promise of a cold, steady flow of water from the mountains, begins to unravel. The lifeline is being cut, and the consequences will be felt all the way from the mountain peaks to the river's mouth. For many people around the world, glaciers are far more than just frozen water or geological features. They are sacred places, embodying culture, spirituality, and identity. For indigenous and mountain communities, glaciers are abodes of deities, sources of life-giving water, symbols of purity and permanence. In the Andes, these peaks are called apis, mountain spirits revered as protectors of the people, guardians of the water, rituals and offerings to ensure a good harvest and the continued flow of water. The disappearance is not just an environmental loss or an economic loss. It is a profound cultural and spiritual crisis. When a sacred glacier vanishes, it can feel as if a deity has died or a protector has abandoned its people. Deep feelings arise: grief, anxiety, cultural dislocation. Traditional knowledge and spiritual practices passed down through generations, often tied to glacier cycles, begin to lose context and meaning. For these communities, melting ice is a sign the world is out of balance, a physical manifestation of a spiritual wound. In the Himalayas, the link is just as strong. Glaciers feed sacred rivers like the Ganges, central to the spiritual life of millions. Pristine, glacial meltwater equals spiritual purity. Pilgrimage sites often sit near the glacier snout. The Gomukh, cow's mouth, is the Gangotri terminus, revered as the source of the Ganges. As it retreats, the sacred site's location shifts, creating a disconnect between land and tradition. This loss of cultural heritage is intangible but vital. These mountains of ice are part of who we are, landmarks of human history that inspire awe, reverence, and a sense of connection. Their disappearance erases a physical feature and part of our shared cultural and spiritual landscape. As the ice melts, we lose more than water: wisdom, identity, spiritual sustenance. A loss not measured in dollars or cubic meters, but deeply felt by those who hold these frozen giants sacred. Glaciers are not just vital for ecosystems and cultures, they are also powerful economic engines for many communities. The majestic beauty of these ice giants draws millions of tourists every year. Iceland, Switzerland, Alaska, New Zealand. This glacier tourism industry supports local economies. Tour guides, hotel staff, small business owners. People travel from all over the world for the chance to hike on a glacier, explore an ice cave, take a boat tour to witness a glacier calving into the sea. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry built on the allure of ice. However, this vital economic resource is now literally melting away. As glaciers retreat, attractions disappear or become more dangerous to access. Alps. Ski resorts that rely on glaciers for summer skiing face shorter seasons or closures. Ice caves are becoming unstable and prone to collapse, making them unsafe for tours. Glacier hiking trails now require longer, harder treks to reach the ice. Tour operators must constantly adapt to changing, hazardous conditions. The product they are selling is vanishing. The economic consequences are already being felt in many communities. Alaska. Cruise ships that bring tourists to see Glacier Bay are finding some glaciers no longer reach the sea. In Iceland, the famous Jökulsárlón Glacier Lagoon, a lake filled with icebergs, is a major tourist draw, but it will eventually cease to exist once Breda Merkurjökull retreats from the water. Local economies dependent on that steady stream of tourists face an uncertain future. They are in a race against time, trying to adapt before their main attraction disappears completely. This creates a strange and sad paradox. In some places, there is a boom in last-chance tourism, people flocking to see glaciers before they are gone forever. While this provides a short-term economic boost, it also highlights the tragedy of the situation. Communities are profiting from the imminent death of the very thing that sustains them. The long-term challenge is to build more resilient and diversified economies, not solely dependent on a disappearing natural wonder. The story of glacier tourism is a stark example of how climate change is not just an environmental issue, but a direct threat to people's livelihoods and economic stability. The tipping point. One of the most frightening concepts scientists are now discussing is tipping points. A tipping point is a threshold beyond which a system changes abruptly, dramatically, and often irreversibly. With glaciers, we may be pushing some past a point of no return. Melting can create a feedback loop that accelerates itself. A glacier's bright white surface reflects sunlight. When it's replaced by darker rock, it absorbs more heat. Meltwater pools also absorb more heat. More absorption means faster melting. Faster melting exposes more dark surfaces. The cycle repeats, speeding the glacier's demise. Some of the largest ice formations may be approaching these thresholds. Greenland, West Antarctica. Certain glaciers, like Thwaites Glacier, the Doomsday Glacier, could trigger wider collapse. This wouldn't be slow or linear. It could be a rapid runaway event. That would cause catastrophic sea level rise in decades, reshaping coastlines. This is no longer a distant risk. We're seeing warning signs of destabilization. Grounding lines, where ice lifts off bedrock and begins to float, are retreating rapidly in Antarctica. In Greenland, meltwater is seeping to the ice base. That water lubricates the base. Lubrication makes the ice flow faster toward the sea. These are alarming signs of sensitivity and instability. We could lock in several meters of sea level rise this century. Many mountain glaciers are already destined to disappear. A recent study projects losing half our planet's glaciers by 2100, even if we meet ambitious goals. That means a future with far less ice, diminished rivers, rising seas, and altered landscapes. The loss isn't just ice, it's the stability of planetary systems, the security of our water supply, the safety of coastal cities. The glaciers have warned us for decades. The question, will we act before the point of no return? Their fate, and ours, hangs in the balance.